Thank you very much, Joseph Hudson, for that elaborate backgrounder. Now we have guests with us in the studios and at Lagos Network Center and also via Zoom. Here in the studios, let's welcome Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business. Pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to be here.
A regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Ken Okoha, who is President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Ken, welcome once again.
Good morning, Kinsley, and good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. We also have with us William Ezeagu, who is Director Product Development at the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. William Ezeagu, pleasure to have you this morning.
Good morning, presenters. Good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining us from our Lagos studio is Shaibu Idris, Managing Director, Timeline Consults Limited. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Jumai. Good morning, fellow discussant, and good morning, Nigerians.
Via Zoom is Ambassador Ayola Olakani, Director General, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here.
All right, once again, pleasure to have all five guests with us this morning. Let's begin by having some conceptual clarification. The question is going to the Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, considering issues that have arisen from time to time while discussing ease of doing business. Is it a question of ticking the boxes? Oh, it's easy to register a business, so we proceeded with that. Oh, it's easy to get a construction permit, we tick that. Or is it a lived experience? And if so, what has been our experience?
I think the proof of the pudding is in the private sector response. It's not been an easy task. Everybody knows that there's serious challenges that we continue to work on, and it's a journey of progressive improvement. However, we wouldn't have moved up the rankings until it was discontinued last year if private sector hadn't adjudged things to be getting progressively easier to do business. So it's not about what government says. The validation actually comes from the private sector, and that is what our mandate is.
Okay, back again to the question. What is it you're looking for in ease of doing business, and what is it that the private sector has found attractive?
Well, you know, I really can't answer for the private sector and what they found attractive. What I do know is that in 2016, the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council was set up by the President and is chaired by His Excellency the Vice President. The mandate is to remove bottlenecks, bureaucratic and legislative bottlenecks across the country, and also to improve the perception of doing business. Now, we don't necessarily focus all our attention on rankings. In fact, the World Bank report has been discontinued. It was discontinued last year after 1 year of suspension because of irregularities at the World Bank end. But what we have done in Nigeria is to have an intervention that works across the country. The federal government has about 55 agencies that we track through EO1, the first executive order on transparency and efficiency of public service delivery. We also work with the National Assembly. We've passed a number of legislations, including the CAMA. We work with the judiciary, both at federal and state level. We have small claims courts in about 4 states now. We also work with state governments across the country. In fact, more importantly, we released our own baseline survey on ease of doing business across Nigeria last March, and the rankings of all states were released in June. Yeah, so I made a presentation even about that at the National Economic Council last week, because the second iteration of that report will be released. Now, the basis of that report was a survey independently conducted by a private sector global consulting firm that listened to what MSMEs are saying across the country. And we garnered a lot of empirical data from that. We also had a cost of compliance report that we piloted with Lagos and the FCT last year. We launched it in January. So these are the things that we continue to focus on, making sure that we listen to private sector and that we deliver the changes across the board, leveraging on automation, leveraging on process reengineering, leveraging on feedback, accountability, consequence management, and we continue to do that.
So if Nigeria is doing away with the World Bank ranking, what parameters are you using to measure the ease of doing business as it is now?
Well, Nigeria isn't doing away with the ranking. The ranking was discontinued globally because of irregularities concerning 4 countries at the global level.
And why is that?
Because of irregularities concerning
why the irregularities? What causes it?
This is a World Bank internal challenge, and it was globally announced. Yeah, so that is why we don't necessarily focus on rankings. So the rankings are good, they're an external validation. But what we do is focus on what private sector, where they're feeling the pain, the issues they talk about, things like ports reforms, things like trading within Nigeria, movement of goods across the country, movement of goods across borders, registering of companies, real issues that we continue to work on. We have our reportgov.ng application. It's a portal where private sector sends in complaints or compliments. We work on airport reforms. We work on a broad range of issues. The issues are a lot. Agro exports, for instance, have an ad hoc committee specially dedicated to them that we're working on currently. And we just continue to listen to them and address where the shoe is pinching, because we have to. They have to be able to compete. There's AFCFTA. I mean, there are infrastructure challenges that other ministers are working on, but this government has prioritized soft infrastructure for the first time under ERGP and now under the National Development Plan, because we want private sector to be able to contribute to about 86% of funding that plan. We need to make sure that the environment is conducive for them. So those are the specific pinpoints, especially for MSMEs, who contribute almost 50% of the GDP of this economy. So we're particularly focused on solving their problems. It's not easy, it's not overnight, but that is our mandate, and that is what we continue to work on.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Oduwole. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's go over to our Lagos Network Center. Shuaibu Idris, one of our regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria, whenever we're discussing business and financial matters. Shuaibu, well, let's have your opening salvo, as it were, on ease of doing business. Is the environment in general getting more conducive, or we still have those bottlenecks that hinder the performance of businesses in the country?
Kingsley, thank you once again for having me. I think the beginning of the discourse should be, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about ease of doing business? What parameters, what factors are we looking at? Fundamentally, before the World Bank discontinued that report, they were looking at about 10 items. Cost of capital, which is how much are you able to get loan, the relative ease within which you get the loans, the security situation in a particular country, infrastructure, network, the legal and regulatory framework, how are minority rights being protected, to what extent say intellectual property rights are being protected, how do you have access to, like Jumai said, construction permits, property rights, and a number of other items that the index used to take a look at. If you ask me, fundamentally, I will say we are on the right track. For the first time in the history of our country, we have a presidential committee that is chaired by no less a personality than the erudite scholar, Professor Oshibanjo, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we also have, a special advisor to Mr. President on this particular subject matter. I will say we are on the right track once again, because we are identifying the issues and we are looking for people, or we have identified people that will help address the issues. However, It is good to know your problems, and it is good to begin to look at ways and means of resolving the issues. Madam Jumoke has alluded to the areas of intervention. But myself, as a practitioner and as a consultant that relates with quite a number of local and international businessmen and women, I will dare say that the much that government is doing has not, impacted favorably or reasonably to us that are practitioners. We need to see more, and if any, we are a little bit disappointed because Kingsley and fellow discussants, we are in a generation of technology. From the time this committee was set up, from the time we eventually have our first special advisor on ease of doing business till today, should we be where we are, given technology, given the competition Nigeria is facing with a small country like Ghana that is well ahead of us, even within the ECOWAS sub-region. If you take like 15, 16, nations in the ECOWAS sub-region, Nigeria is still battling to be number 7 or 8 of ease of doing business within ECOWAS alone. Given our size, given the talent, given the brands, given the wealth that we have, should we be battling to be number 5, 6, or 8? Shouldn't we be, in fact, number 1, and the second person should be way behind us by, say, 20, 30 marks? I believe we can do better given technology and given the God-endowed wealth that he has given to this country. I'm not being negative, but these are facts because I face this thing every now and then. There's still red tapes. There's still bureaucratic bottleneck. Taxation is still an issue. You want to get your tax clearance is near impossible, even with technology. Customs are still having, issues at the border, at the post. You may not even be able to pay your duties with relative ease. Not in today's age. Not where we have the kind of technology that mankind has developed. I think we can do better.
All right. Thank you very much, Shuaibu Idris. We will return to you later in the course of the conversation. Now, let's bring in the Director General of NASIMA, Ambassador Ayo Olukone, who was earlier introduced by my colleague, Jumai. Ambassador Olukone, let's have your take on this. Namely, one more time, whether ease of doing business is a question of ticking the boxes or a lived experience, and if so, what will you tell us about the NASIMA experience?
Well, thank you very much, Kingsley, and it's good to be here. It's good to see Dr. Oduole, who has been at the driving seat of the ease of doing business. I will briefly, let me just say that, yes, we've come a long way, but we still have a very, very long way to go. And I'm giving practical examples of what we get from our members. One, the crisis of multiple taxation is affecting a large number of SMEs. The crisis of multiple taxation. A lot of them are struggling with it. Some of them have even gone under. Then the crisis and problem of issues of practice direction, that at the tax appeal board, when they give you a tax bill, you must pay 50% first before any other thing. That is another issue. Now, let me give a practical example of a recent issue. There was a Turkish company that into diaper production and others, and we had a meeting on Friday recently. The company I'm talking about, I will not mention the name so that NTA will not send us the bill in terms of promoting a company. The company produces diaper, and it is based in Agbara. $120 million investment. But the crisis of infrastructure is one of the problems that is facing this particular company. They told us, and I'm talking about just Friday, that there's a 60 million additional investment which they want to put into this particular area. But the crisis of infrastructure in and around Agbara and other places is delaying the question and issues of putting this money and starting the project. And they are hinting that the possibility of cancelling is there because of the crisis of infrastructure in and out. You know it. Our chambers in Agbara or Agbara chambers also has, of course, reached out to us that, look, please, listen, let's see what something can be done about this. I'm just giving that as a practical example as far as this issue itself is concerned, that these are key issues which must be faced. And which brings me now to the question of the issue of ease of doing business at the subnational level. I know that the federal government, of course, cannot take it all. But if we can deal with the issue and bring in the states, the question of ease of doing business at the subnational level is very, very important, so that all of us do not have to be running all the way every time to Abuja. I just thought I should give this perspective as far as the practical dimension and the reaction which I got. We recently decided to log in onto the NAM tax, the local government, the Algon, in terms of the issues of taxation which I have spoken about. And I'm sure Dr. Oduwole and all others who are my colleagues who are here would know this, because Algon is a reflection of the crisis which they're facing as far as the question of ease of doing business. At that particular level, the SMEs are at the heart of it. And of course, it's very, very important that when we talk about ease of doing business, we go down to that particular level. And our chambers of commerce, which are all across the country, of course, have been raising this issue and come to us. Please help us tell them this is where the action is. This is where ease of doing business is one of the most meaningful things in terms of mobilizing SMEs to be able to effectively perform. I just thought I should concretize the abstraction by giving those practical examples we talked about. A $60 million investment, which is now waiting. And you can imagine the amount of jobs $60 million investment will provide for people in and around that area as far as the crisis and the problem I'm talking about. It was out of a meeting which we held with the Turkish team, including the Turkish ambassador and some of the investors who wants to put money in that particular area. Like I said, we've come a long way, but the road is still very, very long. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's come back to the studio. Mr. William Ezeogo, last year we talked about, standardization in export, and you were here. It was a very lively conversation. A lot of factors have been outlined: infrastructure, electricity, standardization, and bureaucratic bottlenecks. How are these factors militating against ease of doing business in Nigeria, especially in the area of exports?
Thank you, Jumai. Thank you, Nigerians. Export is actually dependent on a competitive economy. In other words, efficiency is very key. Production efficiency is key. National efficiency is key. And so the ease of doing business is actually more relevant in the area of export. And more importantly, the fact that even the PEBEC also have I think one or two items on the subtotal of it, which says trading across borders, and so it's very, very efficient, because without efficient system, the cost of production will be very, very high. And so that's why it's important that we're looking at this. That example of the port, I think when Mr. Oduwole was talking about before he mentioned the port reforms, and discovered that the cost of moving product from the hinterland to the port is sometimes not even the cost alone. Of course, somebody have talked about the multiple charges. Apart from that, you get to Lagos, to enter the Lagos port becomes an issue. So those are kind of issues that really that's affecting the export, because if export, the buyers or the what you call the importers, they are looking at one, cost of your goods. Nigeria, you are competing with many countries to get goods to the buyer. So it's looking at the cost. We're also looking at the quality of the product. Now, if your product stays in the port, and to enter the port, it takes about maybe 2 weeks or so to enter the port, and the product gets spoiled because of the high temperature that has caused the product to get, either rancid or get mold, or if the moisture has risen far above what the customer wants. Those are issues. Okay, so, and that's actually an issue that, which I know the public also is addressing right now. And I think Mr. Oduwole mentioned it. And I believe that it's very, very important that the system we get an improved system in terms of efficiencies, cost of production. Again, that's why actually Nigerian Export Promotion Council have come up with the realizing of these challenges. We set up what we call the domestic export warehouse. This domestic export warehouse is a concept whereby all the things that are supposed to be done at the port side, the fumigation of product, aggregation of product, fumigation, certification, inspection of the product, could be done at the hinterland. At the hinterland, whereby all these things are done, then the goods are containerized right at the port, at the hinterland where the thing is being done. Then shipped, moved to the Lagos or to any port that is taken out. But the most important is that it is going to be based on technology. And that is what the NPA is using, the ecosystem. So you don't leave your place in Meduguri or in Kano or Sokoto or Enugu to Lagos or to Port Harcourt without being called under the protocol. And that's why we're collaborating with them. So this kind of technology, I think one of the discussion mention of the issue of technology is key. Is key, so that if we use technology, we could be able to really cut some of these things we're talking about. Because I want to say that efficiency is key. And productivity can only increase if there's efficiency. And efficiency comes where there is cost of doing business is very low. These multiple charges we're talking about, the road system, you're moving from say Kano to Lagos. How many checkpoints you have on the road that will check your port. In fact, the one you're moving from Lagos to Benin Republic, how many checkpoints you have, how many days do you wait to get those things. Technology is key. Technology is key. If you're moving from if there's a scanner in the border, if there's a scanner there, everything that goes there could go through the scanner. Just like you're entering a bank or you're entering maybe Transcorp Hotel, you go through a scan, all your things are scanned. So we don't need to be waiting vehicles, check this, open this and all that. Those are kind of challenges that we exporters are facing that actually making things difficult for them. Thank you.
William Ezeagu, thank you very much for your comments. Let's bring in now Dr. Ken Ukoha. Dr. Ukoha, how easy is it for us to do business in Nigeria today against the background of reforms and practices?
Thank you very much. Once again, good morning, Nigerians. And I think my starting point should be to commend the government for understanding the hue and cry, I put it that way, of the private sector over the years concerning the difficulty, the challenges, the obstacles, man-made majority, man-made, made by Nigerians, made in Nigeria, obstacles.
Made for Nigeria.
Made for Nigerian obstacles that we have been facing over the years. Before this administration came up and then, saw the need to set up ease of business, doing business, council. And then you also discover that from 170 ranking, we jumped so high that we are now at 131 at the latest, the last, ranking. That's commendable, quite commendable. It shows the vision of government understanding the need to relax these obstacles so that private sector can move on. But then, are we where we are supposed to be? I don't think so. I don't think so. There are 3 things among the 10 criteria set up, if you like, indicators set up by World Bank, upon which this ranking stand. And the 3 are namely, 1 is procedure. Now, I'm going to talk about that. 2 is time, if you like, delays. And number 3 is cost. Now, whatever you are going to do in terms of easing business, you are going to judge or measure on this particular criteria. What are the procedures? If you talk about procedures, you are talking about legal and legislative frameworks. You're also talking about the hindrances as well. You're also talking about enforcement of those procedures. Number 2, if you are looking at time, you look at the delays or otherwise, accorded to facilitation of goods and all of that. Number three, if you are looking at cost component, how much does it really cost a businessman, a private sector operator to really implement those procedures? Now, looking at this, Kingsley, few weeks to Christmas, we were here looking at the subject matter. I think you should remember that we talked about customs as trade facilitators or revenue collectors.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, these are agencies created to ease business. And in every class, the word custom organization, their objective is to facilitate business, facilitate the movement of goods and services. But then, on the other side is the issue of infrastructure. And when I look at infrastructure, I've also seen that we can tick good for this administration, providing some level of infrastructure. Today we can see rails. Today we can see new airlines pumping up. But there is something I must hint here. And I'll give you 2 or 3 practical examples that will tell you where we are. And I'm so happy that the World Bank ranking just was put on hold, so that it will give Nigeria some sense of inward looking to see where we are practically, not just ticking, like you said, ticking those indicators. Let's go home. And I'm happy with what, Jumoke is doing in his, in her office. Looking at the private sector, asking the private sector on practical aspects of the ease of doing business so that we can look at it together and solve these matters. 1, how easy is it to move goods from one particular state to another? Some of my colleagues have talked about the subnationals and the problems we're having. But within here in Abuja, for instance, in this Federal Capital Territory, I'm sure you have seen different uniforms of people who stop buses carrying goods and all of that on the way. 2 weeks back, just about 2 weeks back, precisely on the 13th, I was coming to work, and at Area 1 junction, roundabout there, some of these guys, area council guys, stopped a bus. The driver was trying to clear, and there was a vehicle by the side, so he was trying to also avoid them. Before you know it, these guys jumped in and yanked off the side mirror. The man in question, the driver in question, was actually driving the bus, but there were no goods inside the bus. So the guy was so annoyed. In any case, he came out. Everybody, there was a fight. There was a stampede there. We all came out. This guy went in and brought his papers. Everything was complete. Where did you yank off? Anyway, this is just an example. So this is complete distraction. His business is delayed. There is a cost there added to him. He's going to repay that. Who is going to bear all of this? So these are some of the things that are practically obstructing our businesses up to this moment. And from one state to another, there are all of these people. In fact, you don't know whether they are hoodlums or hooligans or tax collectors or whatever. They are still there. Multiple taxation destructing the way. We also talked about the customs and the creation of several units. If you are going electronic, and let me comment the CAC. Today we can go in and under 48 hours sometimes you have registered a company. It was not many of us so. So thumbs up at that end. But can we also have other agencies emulate that structure where we can now have the customs? You are supposed to be driving your facilitation of goods electronically, and they will now reduce human interference, not creating more units, FO unit here, clearing unit here, the removal unit here, and as long as these units are there, you will still have the tendency of people paying more and more and more and more, and it trickles down to the last consumer. And that is not ease of doing business. And people will be refrained. There are many that I will talk about as we move on. And this means thank you very much.
Yes, Dr. Ken, you've raised a lot of pertinent issues concerning ease of doing business in Nigeria. Let me join Dr. Jumoke. Dr. Jumoke, you've listened to them. You've heard the problems. Dr. Ken said it is a Nigerian thing. It's a Nigerian problem for Nigerians. Keeping in mind the so many policies that this government since they came into office have put in place to make sure Nigerians, have ease of doing business, go into the private sector and not wait for white-collar jobs. Why are we still talking about this now?
First of all, I want to say that what Ambassador Olukoni and Mr. Idris have said, fair comment. I mean, the first thing I said was that it's really not easy and it's a progressive journey. Ken, I want to thank you for being thorough and well prepared as usual. You really got it right about the indicators and what we look at, the cost, the speed. We also look at transparency, and that's where the discussion on automation comes in. Now, homegrown, because I want to focus less on the World Bank. First of all, that's done with, but it was a good template. But we've taken it further than that. Homegrown, our homegrown baseline survey looked at security, infrastructure, access to information, work readiness. I like what you said about it being a problem inflicted on Nigerians by Nigerians. Because you could hear the frustration from actually a public servant, frustrated with his colleagues. Because if any PC is talking like this, what Mr. Ezeagu is referring to is challenges he's having with other government agencies. So what the council is doing is actually the Secretariat is a transformation office working with ministries, departments, and agencies, about 55 of them. We track them on a compliance report, EO1 compliance report. We have 3 so far, so it's been 3 years of tracking them, and we rank them. So you can look at that and see where each agency falls. Instead of us looking outwards, let's even bring it home. You will know which agencies private sector is referring to. When you're talking about automation, what does it take an exporter? NEPC is a member of the Agro-Exports ad hoc committee that the Vice President had to set up in November to look into some of these issues, specifically for perishable agro-exports that are really in pain, and came up with an escalation all the way to the presidency, which I've been coordinating that initiative, and it's also chaired by the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment. Now, we try to get government agencies to work with each other and to focus on the people issues, the process issues, and infrastructure. Of course, the hard infrastructure challenges are up to the honorable ministers, Minister of Power, Minister of Works, Minister of Digital Economy and Communication, because we need broadband, we need airports, Minister of Aviation, Minister of Transportation. These are their mandates. And I believe you've mentioned rail, you've mentioned several things going on. But when it comes to soft infrastructure, it is a journey of collaboration, institutionalization. It is a pragmatic journey of consequence management, the officers on the ground relating with Nigerian MSMEs. So decisions are taken at council level, ministerial level, heads of agency level. We are really trying to trickle it down by tracking what each ministry, department, and agency is delivering in terms of time, speed, cost. Tracking with state governments also. We talked about multiple taxation. AMAC was recently invited onto the PEBEC, the first local government, to drill it down to that level. It's not something that is, behavior is difficult to change, but we've been at it 5 years now. Sometimes it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, because the system resists change, and you get a reform. After a while, there's an attempt to revert. And these are Nigerians to Nigerians. And I was so glad you made that point. Because whether it's government, whether it's really human beings, business owners, and public and civil servants, there's also, let's just call the elephant in the room, corruption. Let's just call the elephant in the room. But corruption is a two-way street. There are people demanding and extorting. There are people paying to facilitate and even get ahead of their competitors. There are people that already know who they call to sort things out. And they cause a bottleneck for others that are not able to or willing to do that. So the system is like a logjam. It's just like being in traffic and some people are shunting. So both the giver and the taker are frustrating the system. But what I want us to do here today is focus on where we have started tracking these things. It's been 3 years of Executive Order 1 compliance reports. I can send them to all of you, and they're on our website. So you will see the agencies by name, and you will see the scores. Transparency, ports operations, efficiency, starting a business, and you'll see where they all rank. Consequence management is a big thing. We've also had a lot of commendations. There are agencies that have, in fact, NEPC is one of the agencies that have been commended. Streamlining their procedures, their service level agreements, adhering to the timelines. How many times do you adhere to your timelines? It's all based on what private sector says. So we track with the Office of the Head of Service, Servicom. We look at, they submit monthly reports, which are tracked. So we try to focus on, that's why I was downplaying rankings, not because rankings are not important, but it's not really rankings that will move the needle. We don't tick boxes here. I mean, that's really not a good use of a special advisor's time. We're very, very granular. And a lot of stakeholder engagement. We were on a national tour, Lituation, before COVID. We have several stakeholder engagements. We have our report.gov.ng application where we receive complaints, and every agency on that portal has a back end working on those. So I want to appeal to Nigerians, please make reports. Don't tweet about it only, and don't vent about it and throw up your hands like this is how the system is. No, we all make the system. So it's like everybody queuing up. If everybody queues up, everything would dissipate in no time. But once you have some cars going in, both the person letting them in and the person out there trying to jump the queue, both are guilty. So we can make the system work. We can work on the system. It's not something like a snap of the fingers. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. It's a very hot seat. When people say, oh, Dr. Oduwole, you're on the driver's seat of ease of doing business, it's a very hot seat. But it takes collaboration. I want to commend like the National Assembly partnering with us. We've had the CAMA, we've had legislations, the credit bureaus, access to credits, collateral registry. These are some of the legislative interventions. We have coming up our Omnibus Bill, which is a business facilitation bill that scoops up a lot of irritants. That's ready to go to FEC now. It's been taken in an executive bill by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. Once it gets through FEC, it's going to the National Assembly. They've been waiting for it for about 18 months now. We've been engaging with stakeholders, Nigerian Bar Association section of business law, and a lot of law firms, over 40, from across the country. And we got feedback from people. We partnered with NESG, NASPAR, very broad collaboration. We have a lot of work to do. And it's not like, oh, government or, oh, ease of doing business. It's everybody, because we're competing. AFCFTA, I know that you would, in fact, you've been restrained on going into that. You've
and
really
time
focused.
Is ticking.
Yeah.
Time
Oh,
is ticking.
yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, if we go into that, that's a whole conversation on its own. So we're just focusing on how do we move the reforms? It's by adhering to the rules, letting the system work. both public sector, public and civil servants, and private sector business owners, let us adhere to these rules. Let us desist from corrupt practices. Let us be efficient and transparent in what we do. Let us leverage technology and not resist change. And let us deliver the economy that we know we can deliver and we should deliver. It's a new year. Let's start and do it right.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Duole, for the explanation that you have provided to the comments raised by the other guests. As part of the reform measures, we have discussed on Good Morning Nigeria over the years when we had the idea of the collateral registry and the reforms by CAC, as well as, of course, the enactment of the new CAMA following from what was previously in existence in 1990. Now, you talked about an Omnibus Bill that is in the works to deal with some irritants still in the business environment. What are some of these irritants?
Oh, several irritants. So we're trying to, first of all, the Executive Order 001, we'd like to codify that. That's on transparency and efficiency. So there are 6 specific pillars, including to do with port reforms, including to do with business registration, although we were able to do most of that. Everything you've listed are CAMA, are PEBEC reforms, by the way. So other things like, so insolvency regulations, already working on that. The draft is already done. There's so many irritants across about 27 legislations that we've picked up little things that you need to tidy up. So for instance, relics from colonial era where you still need a red seal, that's been removed from legislation. Areas that need to allow for electronic transmission, working on things like that. So it's legislative reform, it's quite concrete, and you definitely will have stakeholder engagements. Once it goes to the National Assembly, there'll be public hearing. We had quite a few stakeholder engagements before we completed the bill.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Ambassador Ayo Olukone, if you're still there with us via Zoom, the more we interrogate issues around the ease of doing business, what is required to be done, more particularly the people issues, the more I think that we're probably now heading back to the pre-1975 era, because some persons would argue that after 1975, we had a downward slide in the rating and rankings of our public service. That's to say the public service got destroyed by the mass purges that occurred. And all the issues that we're talking about now, obviously, then, of course, started to arise. Otherwise, the question would be, how did we have those massive industrial estates in and around Lagos and in some other parts of the Federation? How did people go about doing their businesses? Small as the country was in terms of population size. But you raised the issue of subnationals and the challenges that members of NASIMA have with the subnational administrations. Do you get a sense that the subnational entities, that's to say the states and the local governments, are on the same page at all material times with the federal government on ease of doing business, or they just keep flying off the handle from time to time, frustrating businesses?
Thank you, Kingsley. I mean, you've raised 2 key and very important issues. The question of the public service and what is going on at the subnational level. Now, through our ESCO and council meetings, we go across the country. And that means we are in touch with our chambers of commerce at those places, and also the respective government at that particular level. Before my own assignment as DG NASIMA, I served 35 years in the Nigerian Foreign Service. That means I was a public servant. The standard which I met and what we left is a far cry from what is happening now. And let us remember that governance and government is very, very important in terms of what we are talking about. So that means that the respective states must be up to it as far as their respective institution in terms of development and children. Even the most brilliant ideas from the private sector can only be meaningful in context of implementation by the public service. So that is one issue, that's one area which I think we need to look at. That while we are talking about ease of doing business at the national level, at the subnational level, it is a problematic issue on two fronts. One, the respective state, and I gave a private example of Abara Estate and the crisis of infrastructure in that place. The people who were speaking said it took them 4 hours because of the bad road and infrastructure, as far as that is concerned. So this is key. This is very important for us in terms of what exactly we really need and what we want to do. It is very important, and that's why the question and issues of capacity development at the subnational level in terms of governance is key and very important. And of course, implementation of whatever is adopted at the national level. This is what I will have to say. And like I said, through our ESCO and council meeting, the other day we were in Benin in November for the fourth quarter council meeting. And these are some of the issues which was talking about. And when we went to go and see Presco oil, I mean, the roads was horrendous. It was horrendous. And that is why I'm saying that this is key, this is very important as far as the question of some action at the subnational level itself is concerned. Like I said, the example of what I gave is key. And when we get the report from our people say that, look, listen, why apart from the federal tax, the state tax, then we now have people on the roads who put stick on the road, who are extorting their own tax too as well. What are the state government doing as far as putting such people in check? Those are some of the key issues which I think we should address. Let us, as much as possible, to be able to have meaningful impact in terms of ease of doing business. Remember that it must be down to the grassroots. And Dr. Oduwole has spoken about the question of the AFCTA. We are key and very important. We are working to let our people understand what the AFCTA is all about, but they also come back to us that, look, for us to be able to produce in terms of improve our capacity, the various issues and crises we are facing, we must deal with it. And I think this is the private sector, of course, and through the chambers of commerce, will continue to work closely with the office of Dr. Oduwole and all of our agencies of government. We work closely with the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Development too as well to try and scale over the crises and the problems which we have. But I've mentioned this earlier, the question and issue of the multiple taxation, the crisis and issue of practice direction. As an SME, you get a bill of about 20 million naira, and then they ask you to pay 10 million. Then say you don't pay a half of that first. Those are not working. Those are some of the things militating, and of course, standing against all the efforts in terms of ease of doing business. But like you said, the public service is also very important. And especially if you go down to the state level, you'll be shocked. And I think a lot needs to be done in that particular. That's where the question of education, taking a long view of history, is key and very important to raise the generations that will make things better. And of course, for the vision for the Nigeria of our people. Chambers of Commerce is key, very important. Where private sector entities are the level. We have about 30,000 members across the country. And I think this is why, of course, we say we stand at the advantage position to be able to work and make meaning of the ease of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ayala. As the program begins to wind down, we'll be looking at other issues when we return after this break. Don't go away.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are here in our Abuja headquarters studios, and all our three guests are still here with us, and Ambassador Ayo Olukone via Zoom, and Shuaibu Idris with us at our Lagos Network Center. My question is going to Shuaibu Idris. Shuaibu, there's an aspect I would like you to also try to comment on regarding the role of subnationals in ease of doing business. What do you think can be done to encourage the subnational entities to recognize that ease of doing business is ultimately beneficial to not just the businesses in the environment, but to the economy of their own localities. I'm asking this question because of the experiences that you have narrated, along, of course, with Ambassador Olukoni and Dr. Ken Okowa, and what we do know. Because now it appears that, for instance, local governments are more interested in pursuing IGR, and any and whichever way they can raise that IGR, whether businesses get crushed, it's immaterial to them. They impose all kinds of levies, and the Joint Tax Board appears helpless in this circumstance. How do we incentivize subnationals to recognize the ultimate benefits in ease of doing business?
Beyond even the subnational, I need to enlarge the question. I think what Dr. Jumoke and her team are doing, from the explanation she's given, and is an excellent development, and it's an excellent process that we are engaging in. The only way that her team can succeed is when the entire component, parts of Nigeria, key into the vision and the mission of ensuring that we create an enabling environment that will make business to be nurtured and prosper. By this, I'm saying beyond the subnational, average Nigerians, we need to create some level of trust and confidence. We need to improve on our character, because generally we appear to have some level of trust deficit in our society. Quality of human capital is an issue, Kingsley. The universities, both the federal and the private universities, as well as the polytechnics, needs to ensure that they produce quality human capital that could be, access. Because, I used to head human resources in one of the largest conglomerates that we have in the country, and, getting human capital is near impossible. Now, to specifics, the subnational government and other, component units that I talk about. Let me share one personal experience that happened just last week. I happened to have a course to travel to Sokoto. You won't believe I had to have a late time of 5 hours. I live in Lagos, left Lagos for Sokoto. I had to spend the night in Abuja to be able to get a connecting flight to Sokoto. On coming back, I left Sokoto around 2, arrived Abuja by 3, and my flight to Lagos was 10 p.m. I mean, even with the improvement in the, in the airport facilities, if there are no improvements in connectivity, imagine the horrendous, cost implication of these trips and the delays. Again, to the specifics, when and where you have state government not being able to process simple transfer of title documents. Personally, I won't mention state for obvious reasons, but I have applied for a change of ownership of a property that I own, and in the last 3 years, the document is still being there. And the state, claims to have a geographical information system. How do you help businessmen and women to prosper? How do you complement the efforts of Dr. Jumoke and her team if state governors don't key into simple aspect of what they are expected to do? Again, just like my brother and my good friend Ambassador Ayola said, you have multiple taxations. You have local governments collecting taxes. Dr. Ken alluded to that fact, and so also Dr. Jumoke, the fact that they had to call AMAC. You have multiple agencies. As long as, we do not have a bit of a clearing house where we talk to ourselves as Nigerians, and as Nigerians that key into a common vision, common goal, so that we know that we are all in one trajectory of a journey to achieve, a bit of an El Dorado, we will not be able to succeed. Government, local, states, and other agencies are, creating several bottlenecks that are impinging on even the ability of the public to succeed. So we are, like she said, you make 5 steps forward, 3 steps backward. So technically, what have you achieved? Just 2 steps. So I believe, because of the nature of the democracy that we are having, presidential system of government, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not a supervising officer of the governors. Ordinarily, the state governors are not expected to even be supervising officers of the local government. But yet, because we are Nigerians, because this system is for all of us, there is need to have a bit of a clearinghouse such that, agencies such as the public can succeed and be able to to deliver the goods and services for which they were created. Like Ken said, we had discussion here. I happen to be one of those that discussed the issue of customs. Why will customs be looking at just my target is to raise 4 trillion naira revenue? Is the goal of establishing custom agency, is it to just generate revenue or to ensure that businesses thrive? Why wouldn't there be another goal to state clearly that in addition to generating, say, 4 trillion or 5 trillion naira revenue, what other advantages or what other support has the custom been able to give to, say, importers who are importing raw materials that are going to be processed locally and by so doing generate employment? Or what assistance are they giving to, say, the people like Ezeagu said, Export Promotion Council? What assistance are they giving to ensure that agri-produce like sesame seed, cocoa, and other produce are expeditiously exported so that we earn the much needed revenues? I think these are issues that we should always look at and have a clearinghouse beyond what Dr. Jumoke in Abuja and her team are having. So we need to expand that clearinghouse to involve the subnational and maybe other agencies that may have some roles to play.
Thank you, Shaibu Idris. And let's come back to the studio. Kenokwa, Dr. Jumoke has said we need to adhere to rules, leverage on technology, and not resist change. I'm going to throw this question at you. How would you rate Nigeria's corporate governance framework, in the business environment and making it easy for business people to do their business the way it should be?
2 things come very clearly. 1, access to justice in this regard. You see, in the business world, commercial disputes are inevitable. And this is one particular angle to ease of doing business. Businesses are frustrated because litigations, in fact, settlement of disputes are there for years unsettled. They remain in court unsettled. They remain in the hands of police unsettled. In fact, sometimes issues that should have been settled amicably through arbitration, or even issues that ought to have been settled that, are not criminal in nature, are criminalized by the police. And therefore, the tendency for people to get justice is not there. So the private sector, the businessman, has serious obstacle, impediment, and this is a disincentive, a disattraction to business. So when we're talking about governance, we look at it from that angle, that template. The temple of justice, has it really helped business? And in fact, that's one of the things that I would also want to place on the table. The table that Dr. Jumoke's work would also need to look at. I know they are looking at that end. However, another angle to it is the issue of sanction mechanism. Agencies are being commended, yes, great, which is very good. Commendation is another way of motivating agencies or people to work. But are we going to see agencies that are going to be sanctioned? Where are the chief executives representing these agencies? Let me give you an instance.
Where is the board of directors?
Where are these boards? God bless you. And you talk about boards who meet every time, and most times it looks as if to the ordinary man like us on the street, it looks as if
It's a tea party.
they are just having a tea party and sharing some money and going back buying vehicles to themselves. So what are they doing to drive agencies to do the work in practical terms that will bring success to the economy? Now, I was trying to look at the subject of sanction. Look at what happened at the airports recently. The PEPEC was, I think responsible for that. Where you have professional beggars, at the airports. People turn into professional begging at the airports. Immigration officers, people who are cleaning toilets and everything, everybody becoming a beggar. And then I think they came to that point. If you go to the airports now, people are restrained. That's what. Can we also have? I also learned that some airlines, I don't want to mention, were sanctioned. And that brought some kind of sanity in the system. But looking at that same airline, that same sector, today flights are being delayed and delayed and delayed. Sometimes you stay 4 hours at the airport waiting for your flight.
Due to operational
reason. Who is this operational reason?
With
what is
apology.
This operational reason?
With no apology.
No, I mean, even if why are you apologizing when you have already crossed? I have about 3 tickets now. I was flying to Owerri, and my flight was to 2 o'clock. Suddenly, by 11 o'clock, I got a text message that my flight has been cancelled. In fact, I still have that ticket up to now. Nobody has told me. Nobody has sent me another message to say, this is when you are flying. In fact, they should have even contacted me to say, when do you want to fly? I have no message again from that November to this moment. How do we operate this way? Now, come to the issue of banks. One of the criteria for ease of business ranking by the World Bank is access to credit. Apart from what the central bank has done, and that's why many people are now looking at central bank as a donor. We shouldn't be.
Or a retail banker.
A retail banker. We shouldn't be. But then, how easy is it to access funds, credit from the banks? What is the interest rate? We are still talking about this thing for how many years? The central bank is battling with exchange rate volatility and all of that, and is still battling again in-house with interest rates that should have really propelled the economy. When you give when you give loan credits to the private sector, it in turn revitalizes the economy.
That's right.
It puts some funds in the hands of consumers.
And the whole idea of the collateral registry was to also
that's the point I'm going to.
The creditors
exactly.
in ascertaining the worthiness of potential borrowers from their system. Yeah, okay. Dr. Ken Okoa, we'll pause you because we're getting pressed for time. I want to bring in...
and that's why I told you that this thing is going to have part 2. Very important. There are a lot of things that we need
that
to
will
do.
be the discretion.
Listen, the agenda.
That will be the discretion of
the producer is listening to you.
That's right.
Thank you.
William Ezago, one of the key issues that I would like you to touch on, it's key, but in paraphrase, what would you like to see in terms of easing the friction, as it were, amongst MDAs? That's to say, ministries, departments, and agencies, a number of which, of course, try to operate in silos. You are doing your own, some other person else is frustrating it. Is it a power tussle or just lack of understanding of what synergy might bring in terms of advantages?
Thank you very much. At this point, I want to also commend the work of PEBEC because they have done so much. When they started around some years, 5 years back, they did a lot of work bringing all the agencies together. And through that, a lot of things came up, actually. I want to, at this point, because I was part of it, and I know that we achieved a lot, despite the challenges that are persisting. But that, again, if you look at it, like Dr. Jumoke said, there is this ranking they do. This ranking, actually, it helps people to pick up. Every month, you must send your report to PEBEC. And based on those reports, they use parameters which they to judge, and they categorize it in terms of maybe construction and doing business and trade across the borders. I want to say that helped us a lot because we also came together. They do some, they bring us together. That's the agencies. Sometimes in Lagos, some in Kano, trying to one subject matter to other. That's it's very helpful because that will give you everybody. Because, for example, we may be on the subject of export. NIPC is involved, NEPC is involved, Custom is involved, SON, NAFDAC, NAQS. So a lot of challenges. So this bringing together helps to really streamline operations. But more importantly, the fact that there's also more need, to get infrastructure in place through deployment of technology, through interagency cooperation. Let me give you an example. When there's issue of rejection, NEPC brought the 21 agencies together. Trying to set up what causes this rejection. Rejection, a lot of things, right from farm gate to production, the market, from market to the ports to all the agencies are involved. And that's what we did. And able to that, based on the success of that meeting, the Office of the Vice President took it up and, made it to be the inter-ministerial, where the Honorable Minister of Agriculture was meant to be the chairman. So a lot of that again help us to to do a lot of things. But like you said, there's a need for more cooperation. Again, I want to commend the PEBEC because there's presently the Vice President or through the Office of the Vice President. They're also doing. They are coming together to the agro committee, which again all the stakeholders are coming together to streamline things and see how we can get things work. So I think it's very important and it's also key to getting things work to perfect order.
Thank you, Mr. William. Time is really going. Dr. Jumoke, before we go, you said 3 steps forward, 2 steps backwards, and time is of essence here. Where do you see this before this present administration bows out?
Yeah,
what do you aim to achieve?
It's really one of sustainability. So business climate reforms really need institutionalization. So we work a lot with 55 MDAs, like I've said, because it's the public and civil servants that are the custodians of the system. So that's our primary internal effort. I also want to say that we've been collaborating with state governments since 2017. The NEC approved the replication of the PEBEC structure. So every state government has a state reform champion, has an ease of doing business council, sometimes chaired by the governor, like Nasarawa, sometimes the deputy governor, sometimes the head of service. And so they're working on their own reforms. I'd like you to have a look at the baseline survey on Nigeria on all 36 states and the FCT that we released last March, and also our compliance reports, the EO1 reports that track the monthly reports. That's on transparency and efficiency with a very thorough methodology framework. So you know really where MDAs are and what they're saying. But the most important thing is institutionalization to really entrench both at federal, state, and local government, and also through the judiciary and the National Assembly, the concept of continuously improving the business climate. Also, collaboration with private sector listening, implementing, tracking, and really making sure that it's where the shoe is pinching that we're addressing systemically and thoroughly. And the last thing is that it's a journey of continuous improvement. So you can't even take your foot off the pedal, none of us. So private sector should keep putting that pressure on government, and government should also keep putting that pressure on ourselves and on private sector so the system works.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business. A pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Dr. Ken Ukoha, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. A delight for you and having you again on Good Morning Nigeria. William Ezeagu, Director of Product Development, Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Thanks a lot for being around.
Thank you.
Shuaibu Idris, MNI, Managing Director, Timeline Consult. Pleasure having you from our Lagos Network Center. And Ambassador Ayo Olukoni, one-time Nigerian High Commissioner to Australia and current DG of NASIMA. Thank you very much for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria.
Behind the marks.
Well, I wish you let the viewers see your broad smile. Congratulating Rafael Nadal, Grand Slam number 21. It's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria. See you again tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Jumoye, so do have a great day. But before we go, don't forget to join us in the fight against rape and rapists.